Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I'm your host, Angie Machado. Joined with me, as always, each week is our BeaverBlitz staff, Jake Hedberg and Davis Doan. How are you guys? Davis?
Well.
Doing good? Okay, yeah, I probably should, with three of us, I probably need to throw it to each of you. It's been a whirlwind week and a half as the Beavers have started fall camp. We are excited. All three of us have been at practice. We've watched several practices. So I think we each probably bring a different, something that stood out to us that we've seen. Jake's been at all of them, so he can probably weigh in the most. Before I start, though, I do want to just remind everyone right now at BeaverBlitz, if you want to read all of the great work that Jake and Davis have done, which is monumental, guys. I'm not trying to tell you stories. What they've been doing is amazing. Right now, 50% off, under $60 get you a full year of BeaverBlitz. And then we just found out that UFC, if you're a UFC fighter fan, that UFC is going in 2026 going to go to Paramount Plus. So once you move over then to a full price member, you get a free Paramount Plus subscription along with your BeaverBlitz. So lots of fun stuff there. But fellas, we're going to talk position groups, who has stood out, who has surprised you. And I'm going to re-ask you some of the questions that we asked before camp started, kind of just to get your opinions on how things have changed. But let's start with the offense because, offense always has a ton of buzz. Jake, I'm going to start with you. Talk to us about quarterbacks. I mean, Malik Murphy, is he the guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's pretty clear Malik Murphy is Oregon State's quarterback. I think what we've seen in fall camp has solidified that. That's not a knock against Jabari Johnson. He's a guy who's continued his ascension from the spring. It's just the pure talent that Malik Murphy has. He's a quarterback that has the ability to be a game changer out there. We've kind of seen it come in spurts with just really good throws. It's just more about getting that consistency down. I think Saturday's scrimmage was kind of a pretty good example of that. He comes out first and second team, they kind of struggled at first, but then, as the practice progresses, he kind of turns it on. He hits David Wells for a touchdown. He hits free off for a touchdown as well. So, if he can play to his level that we know he can play at consistently, then I think it's a pretty solid quarterback room to say the least.
Davis, you were on campus last week. What did you see from that quarterback group?
Very deep compared to last year. I mean, Malik is the clear-cut number one, and Jabari Johnson is an amazing quarterback. And from
his throwing has improved quite a bit.
Yeah. And from what I saw during the practices, Tristan Tia is a super accurate quarterback. I don't know how athletic he is yet, but from seeing drills, he seemed very just precise.
Yeah. One thing Jake and I kind of talked about too is he seemed very poised especially for a true freshman kind of going through his first camp. Jake, has he taken over the QB3 spot?
Yeah, I think at this point it's still a competition between Tristan T and redshirt freshman Callum Guttridge. They've both had their days. They both had some ups, both had some downs. I thought Callum Guttridge put together a pretty good scrimmage session. So I feel like that helped his case for quarterback 3 spot. Hopefully it gets to the point where we don't have to see quarterback 3 this season. But it's crucial to get those guys some practice reps just in case something goes south and a younger quarterback like that is flung into action.
And we've seen it year after year. I mean, sometimes it's an unfortunate injury. Hoping Oregon State has some better luck this year than they had last year. But, you have to have everybody ready. Transitioning over to the wide receiver room, how has that chemistry then been with Malik, with Jabari, and those wide receivers?
Yeah, I think you're seeing strides. There was an issue at times with timing during the spring, and as we've kind of heard throughout talking to the players and coaches throughout camp, that was a big a big stressing point throughout the summer is those guys would wake up at, sometimes it's 3-4 in the morning and go and get some extra reps in. And, talking to Coach Gunderson, it got to a point where they were doing too much. And they kind of needed to take a step back and not overdo things. But, I think that practice has been pretty evident. I feel like there's been a lot less miscommunication and a lot less poor timing throws. I feel like everything's kind of on pace. And if there's incompletions, it's, it's a good play from a defensive back, or it's the occasional ball that does get away from a quarterback.
Yeah, early in the scrimmage on Saturday, there were some great plays by the DBs. And, they were shown as incomplete passes, but the DBs actually made some pretty good plays on ball. We have a question here. Ian Hodgins asked, how's Jimmy Valson looking? He has not been fully active yet. Is that correct, Jake?
Yeah, I expect him to be back pretty soon. He's relatively close, I think. He's a kid we've seen how talented he can be. We saw that towards the tail end of the 2023 season. And if he does get healthy, I think he's a guy that's going to contribute. Just a matter of wait and see, because we have yet to see that.
Okay. Talk to us about the depth at receiver.
Yeah, I think it's been promising to see a lot of younger guys kind of step up. Malachi Durant is a guy who's had a pretty good start to the spring, or excuse me, a good spring and a good start to the fall camp. And then a guy who's came out of nowhere and is a favorite of Davis is redshirt freshman receiver Eddie Freehoff. He's a big physical kid. He's got the SEC receiver build. He's a guy who looks like he can go out there and play for a Texas and Alabama. Pretty raw kid. I want to say he's only played 3 or 4 seasons of football. So he's still kind of getting the flow of the game. But, talking to him after practice on Saturday, he was kind of explaining how everything's kind of slowly starting to click. Because, the kid, he hasn't learned a lot. And like he said, the knowledge at Kirk County compared to the knowledge at Oregon State's a big difference. I think he's a kid that has all the potential in the world.
This was Davis's pick before the season, Eddie Freehoff, and he really exploded on Saturday. Davis, aside from the big body physical receiver, what have you liked early about him?
His ability to, his using his body, you can have that and body type of build and just not know how to use it. But I feel like he's been good at positioning and knowing he's one of the tallest players on the field, and Malik will know that, and the quarterbacks have seen that, and he's really good at high pointing the ball, just keeping the ball away from defenders when he's catching it. I really we had one catch that was low to the ground and still reached out for it and kept it away from, I think it was Glasper was on him at the point. And yeah, it's been this week. We did have a chance to talk with Coach Pat McCann, the wide receiver coach, and he spoke about him as well, just that he is so raw. And I think there's a tendency for a receiver coach to really like that. You can really mold someone into that, what you're, so he doesn't have bad habits to break. But it's fun. But right now he's not in the top starting 3. Jake, give me your starting 3 right now.
Yeah, I think Trent Walker, Darius Clemens, Taz Reddix are the pretty clear top 3 right now. I think there's guys that could push for some rotational time. Durant, Freehoff, Zach Card, David Wells, and then the guy I'm kind of keeping as an X factor is Jimmy Valson, because I think he's a receiver who's capable of starting if he gets back to full speed. But as of now, how things stand based off how the first 2 weeks practices have gone, it seems to me like those 3 have kind of cemented themselves with Trent and Clemens on the outside and Taz kind of playing that slot spot.
So along those lines, moving positions to tight end, we've seen some really good stuff from Bryce Caulfield in the receiving game as well. Tell us, what you've seen from the tight ends.
Yeah, I think it's a deep group. There's 4 to 5 guys that can play. I think Cooper Jensen's a guy that's had a pretty good camp. He's a guy who's struggled with injuries throughout his time at Oregon State. Looks to be fully healthy, which is a huge step in the right direction. And, Oregon State fans, they've seen a little bit of what Bryce Caulfield can do. I think we've seen more of it just throughout the past couple seasons of practice. But he's a talented pass catcher. I think he's going to surprise some people this year. I think the tight ends as a whole are going to be a lot productive. You've got Riley Williams as well, who I know a lot of fans are pretty excited to see. Jackson Bowers, and then a guy who's back after struggling with some pretty bad injuries the past couple of years, Gabe Milborn. We've kind of seen him get some reps in practice as of late. So I think between those 5 guys, I feel like the coaching staff is pretty confident in their abilities to go out there and get the job done. So I think it's a deep group. I think you're going to see a little more 2 tight end sets this season, whether it's Caulfield and Williams, Caulfield and Jensen, and just an overall higher usage in the passing game.
Do you think, Davis, this is the deepest that you've seen Oregon State's receiver tight end room in several years?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I haven't seen much of – I mean, I've been a fan, so I've watched games, but I haven't seen, like, practices. But I think so. I mean, I feel like it's comparable to Bolden and Gould in a way. I mean, that was what I think our best group in the past couple of years was. And I can see Trent Walker not playing like Bolden, but having stats like him. And, I mean – Taz Reddix is going to be – I think he's going to be a super good slot. And Darius, too, I haven't seen –
I haven't seen a ton of him, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of him. So, but he is also a big body. And at the end of the season, he had a great couple of games last year.
Yeah. And you mentioned the big body. That is the one thing, when you look at – Oregon State hasn't had really any big body receivers for probably since what, Isaiah Hodgins. So yeah, I mean that was the last 1,000-yard receiver we had. So definitely potential there. Running backs then too. I mean, this is a group of running backs. I mean, Anthony Hankerson is returning. He is pretty much your clear-cut running back 1, but we all saw last year he was also way better when he had Jam with him. Jake, who do you? I mean, we've started to see Salahadin Allah, which if you haven't seen his interview from Saturday as well, and we spoke to him and to Eddie Freoff, but check out Salah. It was really insightful. I thought we hadn't spoken to him before. He's penciled in as number 2, but then you have a whole slew of young guys. Talk to us about some of those players there behind Hankerson.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a deep group. We've kind of seen guys like Marquise Crosby and true freshman Jorge Glass kind of emerge. Another younger guy in Cornell Hatcher. Those 3 guys have kind of been battling for that 3rd spot. And then Oregon State fans know what Jake Reichel can do. We've kind of gotten a look at him and some fullback as well. So it's a deep group. And honestly, outside of the offensive line, the biggest position battle in my mind might be for that 3rd spot. I feel like Oregon State's going to want to rotate 3 guys in, and is it Crosby? Is it Glass? Is it Hatcher? I feel like all 3 of those guys are talented enough to go out there and get the job done. It's just a matter of which one kind of separates themselves from the rest of the pack to take that spot. And I think Saturday's scrimmage this upcoming week is going to be a big tell for that.
Yeah, so the way scrimmage works is first scrimmage was this last Saturday. Jake and I were both there. That's kind of they still let some of the younger guys, some of the guys are really questioning whether they should be seeing more of the field. This Saturday is going to be more into who are the 2 deep, and those guys are going to be playing. So they really start to narrow it down. Now, starters, they're not going to run Hankerson much and some of those guys, but you got to start figuring out some of those positions. So this Saturday is very, very crucial. I think Coach Bray mentioned that, this past Saturday was the first audition, and now they have another audition coming up this next Saturday. And then it goes into Cal, and it's Cal prep. So, not only that, but then you also have a team that's going to need to whittle down a couple spots. Oregon State's over the 105 roster spot. So there's some things that are going to have to kind of happen there as well. Okay. I put it off long enough, you guys. I told you before we went on, this is my biggest concern with this entire season is offensive line. I think we had 10 offensive linemen sit out from the scrimmage. Is that about right, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, a handful of those guys were held out for more precautionary reasons. Fan Wells, for example, is a guy is healthy. He's obviously Oregon State starting center. It was just a matter of it's not worth kind of banging a guy up that's dealt with injuries in the past when he's a guy who's going to be relied on. I think a big key is going to get back guys like Tyler Volton, Sikorsky, Strand, guys who are kind of, if healthy, expected to start. I think we get Strand back pretty soon. And then I think Sikorsky and Volton is kind of the bigger concern. You know, will they be ready for week one? Because I do think those are probably your two starters at offensive guard if they are available. And what we haven't seen them yet, which has gotten some guys some reps, but at the same time, the guys they've had repping there really haven't played a whole lot of football, and that's kind of an area for concern.
So I know this is a huge topic in the lodge too at BeaverBlitz. How is Coach Kavanaugh going to get this group, A, figured out, and then B, gelled together? Talk me off the ledge, Jake.
I mean, you know, he kind of said it in practice. You know, it's just about getting the guys, the best five that are healthy on the field and playing together. And, you know, I think that's what's going on right now. You know, I think he's got, of the guys available, he's got the best five. He's getting them on the field. He's getting them reps, trying to gel them as best as he can, because as things stand, if these guys aren't healthy, they're not going to play in the first week. And I feel like with a position like offensive line, where the unit needs to have that cohesion, I feel like getting that kind of dialed in is pretty paramount. And we've got 2.5 weeks. So if guys don't get backs in the next week or two, that's where you got to start to wonder, okay, is Strand back? Is Sikorsky back? Is Volton back? And that's when Coach Cav is going to have to, you know, really get those guys down to the five that is ready for Cal.
And I will say, there's no one I have more faith in than Coach Kavanaugh to get these guys ready. He's proven he can do it. And that part, I totally have 100% faith in. He also said something else. And Coach Kavanaugh was with the media earlier this week, and it struck me. And it was probably my favorite quote I've heard all spring or fall camp, and actually probably in a long time. He talked about how some of the younger guys have been flashing. You know, they've been flashing some great play. But what he has been stressing is he needs to see consistent good, not flashes of great. So that's what and you know, you kind of think about that and you're like, that's just life in general. You know, consistent. He wants to see them consistently good. So like I said, that I think this team, so we had a question in the chat about the offensive firepower. Davis, do you think this team has more offensive firepower than last year's team?
100%. I mean, wide receivers pretty much the exact same, but just more experienced, and I think more depth to it. I mean, freshmen from last year have been showing like what they can do. And I mean, quarterback, I think we're better by maybe 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks. And then running backs are pretty much the same. I mean, tight ends, I think we improved. I mean, losing Terry, but kept Caulfield and got some transfers. Yeah, I mean, the only uncertain thing is O-line, but with that, I think everyone getting reps could be a good thing. There's no certainty right now, so everyone's got to practice like they might start.
And we have a couple comments about O-line. Beaver Believer, what happened to JT Hand? He's just, I think it's minor. Is that what we haven't heard anything major injury with him, right, Jake?
Yep.
So major. It's a day-to-day, so nothing major. And I agree with Joe Swaim and Digital Dam. Coach Cav could take me off the couch and make me a starting O-lineman in 3 months. I believe in him. Yeah, I think so. And Joe Swaim says Coach Cav makes him want to grab his helmet. He does. You got to have faith in Cav, but this I do think this offense has the potential, and they will be only as good as that offensive line, you know, allows them to be. So if they have, I hate doing that to put that much pressure on one group, but it's really going to come down to some of that. How are you feeling about the depth chart, Jake, as we currently see it? And we just released our version of it, offensive depth chart, on Sunday.
Yeah, you know, I think the skills group's pretty set as things stand. The big question is offensive line, and I think that's going to come down to guys that are available. You know, are Sikorsky and Tyler Volton available? Because if so, that's probably 2 stars at guard. If they're not, looks like one spot's Nathan Elus, but outside of that, you know, you got guys like Jacob Anderson, Jaden Tuya, Ryan Berger, all those guys could start. So I think, you know, the biggest thing is just kind of get that offensive line down. I feel like the quarterback's pretty set. The running backs, the first 2 are pretty set. Receivers, you know, there's kind of rotational battles, but the core 4 guys kind of look pretty set. You know, tight end looks like they've got a pretty clear top 3. So really just getting that offensive line set is going to be the biggest key.
Who has surprised you this year on offense?
Do you want Davis to answer that one? Because I feel like he'd
Davis?
be good with
Yeah,
this one.
let's give Davis this one.
Surprised me. I mean, Eddie has taken a big step. I mean, he redshirted last year. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember how much, if he saw the field at all.
He did.
Yeah, so I mean, looking like he is now, I mean, he could see the field and against Cal if need be, if we need some depth at wide receiver. I think he's I think he's in our top 6 right now. Yeah, that is.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that was your offensive name that Beaver fans should know preseason, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was your guy. So, Jake, have your preseason expectations changed since seeing the first half of camp?
I think the passing games down the field is going to be a little bit better than I expected. I saw a question in there about the passing game, whether Oregon State is going to throw the ball more than last year, and I do think they will. I think that's just, having a more talented quarterback allows you to do more things offensively. But I think what we've seen from the downfield passing game has been pretty impressive. I think we're going to see that a bit more than I had expected heading into the spring, heading into the fall camp. And then, my other biggest question was the offensive line. And, that still kind of remains. Haven't really seen guys that like Strands, Sikorsky, and Volton that we kind of counted on to be healthy or being close. It's been 2 weeks, still yet to see Sikorsky or Volton at all, at least in terms of going live. So, right now, it hasn't really changed. It's the offensive line. That's the big question mark. And, practice only tells you so much. At a certain point, you aren't going to find out until the first game.
Davis, what about your expectations? Have they changed since you've seen the week of practice you saw? Offensively, sorry.
Not too much. I mean, I think with the addition of Crosby and with the addition of Crosby and Corday Glass, I think we're just deeper. So, I mean, I expect a little more from the run game just because it's, super deep. I mean, the top 2 haven't changed, so expecting them to stay. But I think it stayed the same, maybe got a little, I expect more a little bit.
Yeah, I think passing game, like Jake said, has gotten better. They're not worried after spring, but there was definitely some timing issues with the receivers and Malik Murphy. That has gotten better. I think our passing game in general last year was not good. I don't think McCoy had the arm that a lot of us thought he might. And he might have been injured too, so I don't want to just put that on him. But no, I think the potential is there. It was actually kind of funny if you watched the post-practice interview we posted with Coach Gunderson, and the touchdown that Malik threw to Eddie Freoff. Gundy said that was supposed to be a run. And he said he looked, as Malik came off the field, he said that was supposed to be a run, and Malik just smiled at him and said, "I know." So there is going to, Gundy said we'll have to talk about that, but I do think we've had quarterbacks in the past that maybe their first thought is to tuck and run, whereas Malik did look and found an open receiver. So I'm excited to kind of see that develop over the course of the season. Let's take a quick break for the podcast side. Before we do, just again, reminder for all the new people joining us, this is the perfect time to join BeaverBlitz.com. We are offering a 50% off fall camp promo right now. You can get a full year of BeaverBlitz for under $60. So if you're not a member, now is the time to join. Jake and Davis have done a tremendous job, so much information and so much community in the lodge at BeaverBlitz. And then if you already are a member, remember, if you are a full price subscriber, you get a complimentary membership to Paramount Plus. So just another little perk of being a member of BeaverBlitz. We're going to jump back in the pod here in just a second, and we're going to run down with the defense. Welcome back to the Dan Podcast. We are ready to dive into the second half of the show. We just got done talking about the offense and first half of fall camp. We are halfway through camp, And now it's the defense's turn. So, offense, I think there's a lot of optimism. And the one, glaring question mark I think we've all had probably since spring is just that offensive line and the health there. So that hasn't really changed. Defensively, though, let's talk. Oregon State struggled to, with a pass rush this past season. Jake, how is this D-line going to be better? What have you seen from them the first week and a half?
Yeah, I think Tavita Pomea is the guy that's really taken a step forward. He's dropped down 20 pounds. He looks a lot quicker. He's been getting into the backfield a lot. I just think having another year under their belt for guys like Thomas Collins, JoJo Johnson, and then Tavita Pomea is huge because those guys were all redshirt freshmen seeing their first real action, and playing as an inexperienced team up front is usually pretty difficult. I think we saw them grow throughout the season. The run game got better from, the disasters against Purdue and Nevada, and then they held their own at the end of the year against some pretty good backs. So seeing that grow throughout the season, and then I feel like that's kind of carried over through the spring and then now throughout the fall. So that growth as well. I think it's a group that's a bit deeper from last year. I know they got guys like Jacob Schuster they're confident in, and then Tyjee Hill and Tajay Pollock, if they're healthy and available, should be contributors as well. And then overall, I just feel like that experience and improved depth, as long as they stay healthy, which is a pretty key factor. If they can stay healthy, then I think the numbers will be a lot better this season.
Davis, what was your takeaway from seeing the defensive line that last week?
My takeaway, they did really well. Seemed like they had a lot of backfield, like they were in the backfield a bunch. And on one of the practices, it was a pretty run-heavy day, and it seemed like even with the amount of reps they were getting, they seemed to still be out there and playing hard and getting in the backfield and stopping the running backs. I feel like they've definitely put a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks, which is something that didn't happen last year.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
And you really want, to be honest, you want the defense winning practice. You really do. Okay, but pass rush isn't just created solely with those deep interior defensive linemen. Talk to us about the outside linebackers, Jake.
Yeah, again, it's a deep group. Still a few guys that are banged up. Haven't seen a whole lot of Zakiah Saez. Haven't seen a whole lot of Takari Hickel. And those guys, if healthy, will be contributors. Yeah. But it's a deep group. I think they're a lot more physical than last year. I feel like they're a lot more physically imposing as well. Looks like Nico Taylor and Kai Wallen have kind of separated themselves as the top two guys as things stand. And they're big guys. We talked to Nico after practice. He's put on 7 or 8 pounds. He's up to 265 from last year. Kai Wallen's a guy who, played football at Nebraska last year. It's a pretty big-time football school. He's a talented kid. He's a big kid it's 6'5", 255 pounds. So, the size up front is gonna be a lot better suited for an Oregon State team. No knack on the guys that were playing last year, but they were a bit smaller, and even those guys that were, they've bulked up. Zakiah Saez put on weight, Shamar Michaels put on weight. So those are guys that have gotten bigger, and as a result, are going to be a lot more physical. And I think that's going to help with the pass rush. It's a deep group, which will help keep guys fresh, because I think there's, 6, 7, 8 guys that could play this season.
Yeah. So Joe Hicks in the chat, and this is a really good question. Do you believe that getting in the backfield has to do with an improved defensive front or offensive line play?
That's the big question. And there's really no way to find that out until August 30th. It's tough to gauge the offensive line. I never played offensive line, so I played in my lifetime. I played every position besides offensive line and defensive tackle. So those positions are the two hardest in the first place for me to gauge, and then having it be, practice where you aren't necessarily going full speed all the time. You're not on full pads the whole time. It's really tough to get a gauge on things, and at a certain point, the defense sees the same plays over and over again. They start to get a feel for what Oregon State's running. That could be a factor. It really is tough to tell, and I think we'll find out on August 30th.
Davis, you have anything to add with the line there, the defensive front?
I mean, yeah, it's hard. I think it's super hard to tell just because that could mean our defensive line is amazing and that could mean our offensive line is great, but it also could be the opposite and mean like they both might not be awesome, but it's just hard to tell.
Yeah, like Jake said, we're not going to know until they line up against Cal
Yeah.
and you go. We do have a comment in the chat. What does the loss of Davis mean for the student section this year?
I was front row at like every game. It's a big loss.
Big loss. But Davis will be up in the press box. So he's going to be there front and center, just maybe not down front row, yelling at the crowd. Okay, let's talk inside linebackers, because if there's, one area, I think that they're new players, but I think they might take a step forward. Jake, all reports, everything I've read, everything I've seen, Dexter Foster's like the real deal.
Yeah, I think he has, just based off his physical standpoint, paired with what we saw from him last season as a true freshman, I think he could be, the highest drafted linebacker coming out of Oregon State in a while. He's got the size, 6'3", 240 pounds. He's got the speed. He's got the length. He's really checks all the boxes physically. And then from what we saw last year, as a true freshman to come out and play to the level that he did, it's very promising. If I'm remembering right, he was pretty raw coming out of high school. I don't think he had played a whole lot of football.
And that was a complete Coach Bray pick.
Yeah.
That was a Coach Bray, just loved his length.
I think the biggest upgrade for the linebacker play this season is just going to be having Trent Bray taking back over that group. We've seen what he's done coaching guys like Spates, Roberts. He's coached a lot of high-level linebackers, and he said he thinks Dexter Foster could be one of the best. He said after the scrimmage on Saturday that he thinks this inside linebacker group's the best Oregon State's had since the 10-win 2022 season with Spates and Kyrie Fisher. So that's great to hear. I think we've kind of seen that as well. I feel like there's 4 guys that could play, but Dexter Foster is that clear number 1 in that room.
Yeah, and then the second, we talked about, Micaiah Tongue, but recently we've been seeing a lot of Rajon Wright. Do you think he's
Rajon Davis?
Rajon Davis. Sorry, the USC transfer. Do you think he's the number 2?
I think it's close. I think it's something we're gonna, as things stand. I think if Trent Bray was to drop a depth chart today, I think it'd be a Rajon Davis and Micaiah Tongue. I think it'd be a 1-2. I feel like it's probably the closest battle for a starting spot on this team as things stand right now. It could really go either way. I think Saturday's scrimmage will be another big telling point for that competition. I think Micaiah is probably a little bit better in coverage. Having that history playing receiver, whereas Rajon Davis, he's probably a better run stopper. In the past, we've kind of seen Trent Bray use 3 inside linebackers at times. We saw that in 2022 and then at 2023 in times as well. So, that could be a possibility with this team as well. There could be times where all 3 of those guys are on the field. It just remains to be seen how the rest of the camp progresses.
And then Aiden Sullivan is rounds out the group.
A guy that'll be fine for sure.
Yeah, those 4 you'll definitely see all 4 of those guys. Okay, so we talked about the depth at both outside and inside linebacker, but maybe even deeper would be the secondary. One thing that stands out to me is just the fact that Coach Chance is still it's kind of been the MO for coaches kind of throughout Oregon State that we've seen recently, in that those guys need to know all the positions. They need to be able to play nickel, they need to play corner, they need to play safety, and they rotate them around. And they're doing that again. We talked to Mason White, and he's been playing safety this year, some nickel after playing corner. Talk to us, Jake, about what you're seeing from that DB group, because I walked away really excited after watching them in the scrimmage.
Yeah, I think a big thing is the size. It's a big group. What we've kind of seen the last 2 practices, we've seen both Skylar Thomas and Jaheim Patterson as safety. Those guys are, Skylar's 6'3", 225, Jaheim 6'4", 210. Those 2 are pretty big duo in the back end in the first place. And then what we've seen is Tyrese Ivy kind of bump down from safety and take over that nickel corner spot. He's a guy who came to Oregon State as a corner. He's another big guy. He's 6'3", 210 pounds as well. So just the first thing that jumps out the screen, I guess, if you're watching on TV, is the size. It's a big group. It's a physical group. I think it's deep as well. I think they've got a lot of guys who can play at a lot of different spots, and I think that's part of what that cross-training does for you. I feel like the Beavers have been doing that in case something like last year happens, where the Beavers had a lot of guys get hurt. They had some younger guys get thrown into the fire, whereas now, say a player gets hurt, you can bump a corner over to safety, a safety down to corner. You can bump a nickel to corner or safety. It's just there's a plethora of options, and the depth and physicality is something that I probably haven't seen in this group since 2022 season. I feel like that was a pretty deep secondary, and I think this is the deepest one since then.
My name to watch is Jaheim Patterson. I know you guys saw him kind of toward the end of last season, but he's long, he's athletic, always around the ball. So totally, that's my little name to watch there. Davis, who are you watching? Name to watch on defense.
I'd say honestly, Jaleel Tucker's been playing really good.
He actually, you're right. He had a great start to the scrimmage on Saturday.
Yeah, and he was my dude of the day on, I think, Wednesday, and he just I think he might have came away with a pick. If not, I know he had a pass breakup and just tight defense, and he looks like he's made a big step from spring to fall. Great call,
because he was, when I mentioned earlier that the defense had some really good pass breakups early in that scrimmage, Jaleel Tucker had 2 of them. Jake, who's your a name fans should know?
Yeah, Tucker was kind of the one that I was going to say. I think he's a guy who's taken the lead as things stand for that second starting cornerback spot. But pivoting outside of Tucker, I think Tavita Pomea, we kind of touched on it earlier, but he's a guy who has dropped a lot of weight. He looks a lot quicker. He's been in the backfield a whole lot. I think, he's a talented kid. He went to U of O straight out of high school. He's got the talent. Cutting back the weight, I think, was a very beneficial move for him. And I think he could emerge as Oregon State's top defensive lineman this season.
He does look more comfortable. He looks more nimble. And then part of him playing the way he is, I think, too, is that he's not thinking as much. It's the second year in the system. That always seems to help guys. Yeah. How are you feeling, Davis, about the depth of the defense right now? Oh, we lost Davis. Jake, how are you feeling about the depth on defense?
Yeah, the back end feel pretty comfortable. Defensive line's probably the biggest depth concern I have, and that's more of just guys being available. I think ideally Oregon State will want to rotate 6 guys in as things stand. That's kind of how my read on things are. I feel like they've got 6 guys they trust to play. Will they all be available? That's another question. I feel like once we kind of figure that out, is Taiji Hill available? Is Tajay Pollock's available? And that's when I think I feel a lot more comfortable about that defensive line depth.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the depth, Davis? You're back.
Yeah, well, of the just defense in general?
Yeah, the depth of the defense.
I'm feeling good about it, especially secondary.
Okay.
And in the defensive line, it's hard, because I think it's pretty deep. I'd say there's like a for sure top 3, and Schuster's probably 3, but and Thomas Collins, Tavita Pomea, and Jacob Schuster, and then outside linebackers, one of our deepest groups for sure, and I think secondary might be the deepest group.
Yeah, Jake just said he was probably the most concerned about D-line, but secondary too was his. So have your expectations changed from before we start fall camp to now for the season?
For the season in total?
For defense, yeah.
Defense. Okay.
Actually, okay, no, let's do it. Have your preseason expectations changed as a whole for this team?
I'm gonna say I'm expecting more than I was at the beginning.
Okay.
I think our offense looks way better than it did in spring, so I'm more excited about that. And our defense continued to look great, so I'm just super excited. I think, yeah, my expectations grew once I got to see practice.
Got to see them live. Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, do you think this is a more than 8-win team or less than 8-win team?
I think it's a more than 8-win. I think it's a 9 or 10.
Okay, bold prediction by young Jedi Davis Doan. Jake, what about you? Have your expectations changed?
I think they're pretty in line. I think one thing that's kind of changed for the better is my expectations on the kicking game.
Okay.
That was a huge question mark. The Beavers don't have a kicker who has kicked a game in a Division I game. But, what we saw from Caleb Ojeda on Saturday scrimmage was very promising. He came out and drilled a 55-yarder. I didn't know he had in him.
It would have been good too from probably
from 60. He drilled it, and then he was just wide left on a 51-yarder, but he had the leg. It was just off by a foot or two. So I feel a lot more comfortable about that. That was kind of a big stressor. Obviously it's a lot different kicking in practice than a game, but to see that he does have the ability to go out there and kick a long field goals, it's very comforting because I would imagine usually how football works is at least one game a season comes down to a kicking game, and having a kicker that can go out there and get that done is a comfortable feeling, and seeing that was very nice.
Yeah, I agree. And kicking is in a question we keep getting in the lodge. So no, I'm a little shaky. I think I want to see maybe live game action, but to see if they handle the pressure. But that 55-yarder he made was pretty pretty solid. Okay, we've talked about. Okay, well, Jake. Okay, 8 wins plus or minus.
I'd go above 8 wins.
Okay, you too. So we talked about our way too early look before camp started. So we're gonna check back in. Offensive MVP, Jake.
I'm gonna go Anthony Anderson.
Okay. Davis?
I would agree.
Okay.
If I had to say a second, it would be Trent Walker.
Okay. No Malik Murphy in there? All right, guys.
I mean,
I'll go Malik Murphy. There you go.
I'm
Walker, so yeah. I'm going to go with Malik Murphy. Okay, defensive MVP. We going Dexter Foster? We going Skylar Thomas?
This is a clear top 3 to me. I'd probably lean, of the 3, Thomas, Taylor, and Foster, I'd probably lean Skylar Thomas.
Okay. David?
I'd say Nico Taylor.
Okay. This is totally off the cuff here, but I know Jake and I've talked about it. Who do you they have not done the voting for captains yet. In my head, I kind of have who I think will be captain. Who do you think, Jake, will be captain?
I got 5. I got Malik, Hank, Trent, Nico, and Skylar.
Okay, that's what I had too. I just think those are like clear cut.
I can see Pan Wells too potentially if they do more.
Yeah, being a senior. Yeah. Okay. What more do you want to see from the offense in this next week and a half?
Just getting guys back, particularly up front.
O-line, yeah.
Trenches. I've liked what I've seen from the pass game, the run game. Just more of getting those guys back and healthy.
And what more do you want to see from the defense? Jake.
That's a good question. It's been pretty solid.
Yeah.
I would like to see someone kind of emerge from that inside linebacker spot and kind of take a leap and really cement themselves as that clear number 2. And then, the same kind of goes for that second corner spot. We've seen Jaleel Tucker kind of take a lead, at least in my mind. I'd like to see him kind of capitalize on that and clearly take it. So, just kind of getting those position battles figured out.
That's good. And I will say that, and Jake, you've been there, so you can address this as well. The energy on defense is very different than in past years.
It seems a lot more like a Trent Bray defense. I think fans should expect a defense more like the 2022 and 23 defenses rather than what we saw in 2024.
Beaver Believer said, do you think this team is meshing well with all the new transfers? I say so.
Yeah. I feel like they didn't really bring in a whole lot of new guys. Like compared to a lot of other schools, there's a lot of continuity.
Yeah. Joe Hicks, how mobile has Malik Murphy looked in camp? He just doesn't want to run. I mean, he doesn't, but we've seen him tuck and run when he has to. I think he'll surprise some people with his legs. That's what I think. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I've kind of picked – I think he doesn't like to.
Yeah.
He will if he has to, but, he's more of a pocket passer. I'm curious to see if they utilize any design runs for him. I don't know that they will. That may be more of a kind of Jabari Johnson thing. But, he's a big guy. He can –
Yeah.
We saw – DJU liked to run. He wasn't the most mobile. We kind of saw him use that big body in short yardage situations. The Beavers do have bigger backs like Jake Reichel, but, maybe they'll use Malik in short yardage situations. That's kind of a thing that I don't really think we'll get a glimpse of that in fall camp. I feel like that's more of a wait until the season to see.
Like I said, I've seen him move. He's not going to break any speed records, but he can move. And like you said, he's a big body, so he's hard to bring down. But he just doesn't. You can tell he doesn't want to run. Whereas Jabari, I feel, is the opposite. Jabari is the first sight of something breaking down, he's tucking and going.
I do think he's been a lot better this year in terms of going through his progression.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, last year he was the first read, second read wasn't there. He tuck and run. I think he's doing a good job progressing through his first read all the way down to his fourth or fifth. And then, last year it was more of a, first read, second read is not there. He just tucks and runs. Now, not there. He tucks it, but he rolls out. He looks to still extend the play and make a play through the air. So, it's been good to see that growth.
Do you think the Bees will be under center more this year?
I mean, you see it in practice, but, practice, they're repping, what you rep in practice half the time, you're not going to rep in, certain days there's different emphasis. So, one day they'll rep, 75% under center. Other times they'll take 3 or 4 snaps under center. So it's more of, we haven't seen it excessively. So I would say probably about the same. You might see it a little more, but,
well, and I think it was significant. I think it was Sala, maybe it was Free-off, but one of them mentioned on Saturday how they huddle. They've been huddling more.
Yeah.
And then somebody in the lodge was, well, does that mean we're going to go away from being tempo? No, we've seen them go tempo too. So I think you're going to see both, kind of like last year. I mean, they would, I guess they didn't huddle a ton last year, but it wasn't necessarily always tempo. They are huddling a little more this year but tempo as well. Part
of that you have to wonder is, trusting the quarterback to lead the huddle. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was an issue or not last season, but it seems like Malik Murphy as a whole is a lot confident at quarterback, a lot more confident of a quarterback than what Oregon State had.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, guys, you want to take some damn questions from the lodge at BeaverBlitz?
Sure.
We got some good ones here. Okay. See, we've already actually addressed some of these. So, see, this is okay. Jace Spriggs 55. I know the coaching staff has gone through some decent changes from last year. But it seems to me like the staff has the team more ready than last year. Do you guys agree? If so, why do you think this is?
Yeah, I think they are a lot more ready. I think part of that's having, experience on staff. Having Coach Akey, Coach Plangsdorf, Coach Cav, guys that have gone through it. I mean, Oregon State's their coaching staff last year, if you really think about it, I think Coach Bray was their most experienced coach. Outside of Coach Tuyaki, it was Coach Bray or Coach Hayward, and those are younger guys. They've coached for a while, but they haven't seen 30, 40 seasons of college football like three of the staffs on Oregon State have, and I think that's helped them get more prepared. And again, I feel like the continuity as well, even though you lose a handful of coaches, most of the guys brought in are familiar faces. They were either promoted or they're coming back to Oregon State. They know how Oregon State works. They know how to run things. There were guys that were with their position groups and knew them already. So I think having that continuity is a key factor in helping the team get so prepared.
I will say, too, just from watching practice last week, it really became evident what a big role Coach Akey has in being when they're going live. Coach Akey kind of takes over the calling of kind of, keeping the 11v11 going. So Coach Bray can be over with the defense. And I think, like Jake said, just having that knowledge and then having, Coach Langsdorff in that room with the quarterbacks and the offense, just another brain, a longtime coach to bounce ideas off of. It's and you can tell those guys are all having fun. It's fun to watch them out there and having fun with everything. Over under 25 sacks this year.
I'm going to go over on that. I think,
Okay.
Having the Trent Bray defense, they're going to be a lot more aggressive.
Okay. Davis?
Go over. Do we know what we had last season?
7.
We 7?
Yeah. It's 7.
I
But
think I'll check real fast.
sorry. The question was, will the defense get over or under 24.5 sacks this season? And then will the offense allow over or under 24.5 sacks?
They had 7 sacks. Yeah.
Yeah, and we gave up 25 sacks last year.
I think we'll have over on us getting sacks. And then couldn't tell you right now on O-line just because, I haven't seen a certain just group.
Yes,
Like a starting
7,
five.
as Joe Swaim says, 7. That is the lowliest number of sacks Oregon State defense had last year. They have to be more than that. Let's see. Hang on. Okay, let's talk a little recruiting, Jake. Some people are worried that we don't have enough commits. Are we behind, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that wasn't a question people had last season as well, heading into the season. But then if you look at the senior evaluations that Oregon State, made, they got guys like Tristan Tia, Blue Dantzler, Nick Fisher, Logan Knapp. I think they picked up 6 or 7, 6, 7, 8 guys that a bunch of guys that a bunch of guys in senior evaluations that that they had seen before. They wanted to see a good senior season, and they got that. And I feel like that's something they're going to see again.
Hopeful 2019. What differences, if any, have you noticed in this coaching staff compared to last year?
They're a bit louder, with Coach Cav and Coach Heck. They're both kind of yellers, and you can kind of hear them from across the field. I feel like they're louder. I think the more experience. You can hear Coach Hakey as well. He's got a very distinctive voice. So yeah, I think they're louder. They're more energetic, I'd say. I think particularly on the defensive side of the ball, Coach Hayward's a good coach. He was a more quiet guy, a bit more reserved. I think Coach Bray is a fiery coach, and then Coach Hickey's a very loud coach. He's not afraid to be vocal. So I feel like it's a very loud and energetic staff.
Yeah, they all seem to get along well too. They, both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Hendo Beef, I've heard some of the larger programs are reducing their high school recruitment efforts. Additionally, it sounds like there is not a lot of NIL money for non-starters, so I wonder how much of this affects high school kids.
I can't speak to the NIL money on Oregon State or different schools just because you hear things and you don't know how reliable it is.
Yeah.
But in terms of high school, yeah, I think that's a very valid point. Back in the day, it used to be you take 25 or 30 kids each class. Now, with the roster cuts and the transfer portal as well, schools may still take 30 newcomers in off season, but 15 of those guys are transfers. That cut your high school class in half. They may have 35 newcomers, 20 of those guys are transfers. Yeah. So it really differs for each program. Each program has a different mantra of how they want to attack recruiting. I mean, you look at Texas Tech,
Yeah.
then you look at a school like, I don't know, like Iowa, for example, big differences in how they attack recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's different, but as a whole, it is going to affect high school kids just because of the roster cuts in the portal. There's fewer spots available.
I don't. Oh, go ahead.
Smaller schools, it opens the door for them to get guys. I mean, Oregon State, for example, they picked up guys like Jermod McCoy, guys that kind of fall through the cracks. Really talented kids. SEC schools are full. The Big Ten schools are full. They fall through the cracks. End up at Oregon State. It is a good thing for schools in Oregon State's spot.
It makes it tough, though. It makes it hard to build rosters in that, especially with preps, because if you're bringing in high school kids and they stay for a year and then get, recruited out to go to an SEC school, then that's where, taking a known commodity in that same, year in a transfer, it's an interesting time. And there was a discussion about this in the lodge as well with Coach Devan leaving, and somebody's like, well, why did he leave? It's not even for an O-line coach. It's an assistant, analyst. And step back for a second and just see how crazy these coaches' lives have gotten in college. Because now not only are they recruiting, but they're recruiting basically year round. So you have to not only go into living rooms to recruit a kid, but then you have that kid saying, well, so-and-so is offering me X. What are you offering me? And then you might get them on campus, and then you have to re-recruit them the next year. NFL, there's no recruiting. You actually have a roster that you can build around and office, front office folks that are dealing with salary caps and contracts. So you might have a guy for 3 years and another guy for 2 years, but you're not constantly trying to figure that out. It's a lot going on. So, when you see coaches leave for NFL jobs, even if it's an analyst, way better, work-life balance there too. TBTB, by the end of fall camp, coaches are going to have to cut around 8 players to get to 105. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of confusion from me on this. I don't know how this necessarily works. I know there's, it's kind of unclear. It's a very recent thing. There's lots of different factors at play. I know they had opened the portal window. That's gone and passed. It closed 4 days ago, I believe. I think it was on the 7th. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't think even Oregon State staff maybe has it completely figured out yet.
I feel like a lot of schools are still kind of Oregon State's not the only school.
No, absolutely not.
Guys over. There's a lot of confusion. I don't think it's necessarily the clearest rule. I've tried to go over it, and I'm confused. I'm confused. Can you, not cut guys and not redshirt them, just not have them with the team for a year? Can you bring them back and how does that work?
Yeah, can you? Yeah,
there's a lot
of an injured reserve, or
yeah.
is there a way to kind of place them that they're maybe not with the team every day, but then you bring them back in the spring? I think there's a lot of questions, and that's one area I think needs some clarification.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
nationwide
different possibilities. I mean, I've looked at it. I don't really pretend to know like I know it.
Yeah.
Like I maybe should. I mean, it's confusing. So
and I've reached out to other 24/7 folks, and there's even confusion there and different interpretations. So
again, it's not just Oregon State. There's lots of schools kind of going through this.
So very interesting time, guys. So we are, what is it?
19 days.
19 days. 19 days to kick off. Anybody excited for first game?
I'm excited.
It'll be fun. Davis will be up in the press box. I know all of you guys in the student section are sad, but believe me, he'll be on this field before the game. You can say hi to him. Jake was kind of a rock star down in the student section when we walked by. But what do you think next week? Do we want to do another pod next week? Okay, you guys heard it. We will be back next week. But before that time, make sure you are tuning into the lodge at BeaverBlitz to read all of the content. Practice reports are in the lodge. So again, if you're not a member, now is the perfect time to join. 50% off our fall camp promo gets you a full year of BeaverBlitz, access to the lodge for under $60. It is a deal that you want to be a part of, because not only do you have all the football season, we have recruiting, we have basketball season, and I will let you in a little secret. Spencer Newell is actually on campus right now and doing some stuff with basketball. So we will have some men's basketball stuff, as well as a feature on a prominent wide receiver that he's working on. So more to come, but and then you go right from baseball to basketball. So, How many times will Davis Doan storm the field this year? He won't because he's in the press box. So sorry, you guys.
I think
Take
he'll
him away.
actually be on the field at the end of each game.
Oh, he will be at the end of the
He
game.
does
So, hey, he'll be storming the field every game because he'll be on the field. Boom, Davis. Look at that. Until, though, next week, for Jake, for Davis, and I, join us next week for the Damn Podcast.